Hello, my name is Asbelmi Gutierrez, and today I'm going to present what I have researched about teachers' perspective on how socioeconomic status affects willingness to learn English. For this investigation, I worked with some colleagues, some co-workers, and I wanted to know their point of view regarding what they think about social economic status, how that affects the fact that kids or students in this case are more willing to learn English, okay? So let's see what I have found. Now you can see the index. In the index, we have the introduction in where I'm going to explain more or less what about this investigation is related to, the problem that I found, okay, before, and the theoretical framework, all the theories and previous studies that I found on the internet regarding this topic, the method that I use in order to gather information and worked with the participants, the results that I get about my questionnaires and the investigation itself, some conclusions that I got, and finally the references that I use in order to base my investigation in previous investigations. The introduction. In this part, I want to show you what was the topic of the study itself. In this case, the investigation tried to emphasize the greater association between academic willingness to learn a foreign language and the social economical level from the teacher's perspective. In this case, we have two elements that are important: willingness to learn, what academic willingness is, and social economic status, a social economical level, okay? And also the teacher's perspective, how we as teachers consider that the social economical status, the social economical environment of a student can interfere in the fact that he is going to be more willing to learn a second language in comparison to other students. Now the problem that I found interesting to work with was the fact that even though a student can have all the knowledge, all the information gathered in his mind, and even though we as teachers provide to that student all the information that he needs in order to learn a second language, if that student is not willing to use the language, to use the information, to practice with those knowledge, that is going to be absolutely worthless, because willingness has been proved that is important in the process to perform in order to practice the information that you have gathered through your school years or your personal life. Also, I found it very interesting, the differences between students from private school and students for public school, here in Arequipa specifically. In order to work with the problem that I have already mentioned, I looked for a lot of information on the internet, and I explained all the elements that are related to social economical status, with willingness to the process of learning a language. But these three elements, I think, are the most important ones. The case of social economical status is important for our readers to know what is social economical status, what we consider social economical status. And I work with Berkeley's, Gartner's, and Harvard's information then I look for what about willingness? What is willingness? Who has been studied so far about willingness? And in which areas of language we can see this willingness and in which way we can find it. And finally, I explained very, very detailed my context and my participants because I think that it is also important in order to proper set up what I have investigated. After we know the problem and we more or less have an idea about the theoretical framework, it is important to mention the method that I used in order to gather the information. I used the qualitative method, specifically connected to the aspects of social cultural context in speech communities, social networks, and communities of practice. Because I think my topic is related to this aspect. It's the relation that we can find between the social economical status and the student's willingness to learn a language and to perform this language. So, according to what Holmes and Hazen explain in their book, I think this specific method is more suitable than others. After I set up the problem, after I research about the information that was connected and was fundamental to develop my research, after I choose my method and apply my instrument based on Hurwitz's previous investigations, I found very important facts on what happened on or what is the perspective of these teachers, these participants regarding social economical status and willingness. It is important to mention that I had only 5 middle school English teachers, 5 participants, and the results do not show the majority of the perspective of all teachers in the region. But in this particular case, I found that some of the teachers think that there is a connection between social economical status and willingness. And there are other two that consider that there is no relation between them. Also, I found that 4 out of 5 teachers think that there is an important element that these students study in Prescott and not in a public school. So even though it was kind of concerning that even though these professors think there is no connection between willingness and social economical status, they think that it is important for the students that they study there in a private school that is considered the 6th best school in the country. So it is important to highlight these facts because it's something that should be studied further. So after analyzing all the information that I gathered through the investigation, after analyzing the results, I got several conclusions. But in this case, I'm going to explain only 3, the 3 that I consider are most important. First of all, I think that after the investigation, we can say that teachers believe that social economical status affect the fact that a student could be more susceptible or disposed to learn a second language. Because even though they answered that they do not believe there is a connection between social economical status and willingness to learn English in this case, they recognize that the fact that those students are studying in Prescott, in a high-level school, in a school that is considered one of the best in the region, a school that is a private school, the fact that they are studying there, that situation, that environment affects the fact that they are more willing to learn English. So there is a connection there. Also, this study area needs further investigation. I couldn't find many information, many investigations and researchers about this particular area, mostly here in Arequipa, Peru. Okay, so it should be more investigated. Finally, the next stage that I consider should be studied is the willingness can forecast actual second language communicative behavior in cross-cultural encounters where learners have the choice of communicating or not. So I think that not even we can investigate about the willingness, the relationship between willingness and social economical status. We can also add other social linguistic factors, other environment, the personal choice to communicate or not. So other factors that are connected to this process should be further investigated. Finally, you have here the references that I use for this presentation, not for the paper, not for the investigation itself. These are the references that I use, and I have the thank you. So if you have any questions, any doubts, you can comment here, or you can send me an email with all your doubts and I will answer them. So thank you very much for paying attention. I hope that this presentation will help you. Bye.